you have these young kids, they see these great universities, especially these private universities.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just like, oh, education, I need to get my degree. I'm going to get a great job. I'll pay it back. But it is a lot of debt.
When you're responsible for paying those loans and your degree is not getting you that job, it's a tough life, man. The average public university student borrows $32,637 to attain a bachelor's degree.
There's a huge divergence. College is way more expensive. And people all say all the time, why do you millennials complain so much about things? But it's the truth.
I don't care if your dad went to X college and that's where he wants you to go. Don't stack on debt just to do fun, cool college stuff.
I don't think the systems that people use to make these decisions are very well thought out.
Welcome back to Give and Grow. My name is Ryan. This is Eric. We're two guys that just want to try to do our best for our families, providing a foundation that we can be able to pass down and maintain as long as we can. And it starts with us. It starts inward. It starts with our minds and our decisions. And I feel like that if I were to give us a 0 to 10 scale for how well we're doing, I'd probably give myself maybe like a 5. I'm like average, I think, right now.
I disagree.
I don't know. So today we're going to be talking about one of the timeless questions that I think that you've probably been hearing. Is college still worth it? We wanted to talk about just like, degrees, more importantly, like, the return on investment that you get from going to college, and some other alternatives that I think are starting to come up that are doing pretty well. So there's other options. So I think this episode is going to be really interesting. But before we get into that, we're going to start off with our question of the week.
Oh,
which is actually the topic that we're gonna be talking about. I think that it's good to just kind of like get like an overall consensus right now. Is college still worth it in 2024? So Eric, what do you think? Is college still worth it in 2024?
that's the question of the week?
That's the question of the week.
Oh, very fitting. Yeah, I always value education. I think it's super important, but I think you have to be smart by the way you go about going to college, picking your degree, the amount of money you're going to spend. Because if you look at a lot of debt that people have,
Yeah.
a large portion of it is student loans.
Oh yeah.
I know for me, the debt that I have, my biggest portion is definitely student loans. I've already paid off a third of it, and I still have a ton. Now that's including, graduate school, so that's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you definitely need to think of it's not. You have these young kids, they see these great universities, especially these private universities.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just like, oh, education, I need to get my degree. I'm going to get a great job. I'll pay it back. But it is a lot of debt. And I don't think that I don't think the systems that people use to make these decisions are very well thought out. Because parents push, parents, peers, society, just go,
the culture,
go, and yeah, but I'll get in more to like the bigger details about the way people should think about it as we go on. But yeah, I still think it's worth it, but it just needs to be more thought into where you're going, what degree you're getting, how much debt are you going to have, and what's your plan afterwards. But what about you?
That's perfectly said. I agree with that, like pretty much 100%. I think that college is worth it, but you got to be really smart about it. You have to understand, what exactly you're getting into, what kind of job you're looking to get. But I don't think that college is a scam, because a lot of jobs still, a lot of like the better, higher salary jobs require you to have some level of like education in a higher institution, like, bachelor's and above.
Yeah.
But, hopefully in this discussion, maybe we can like just talk about some things that people, some of the pitfalls that people fall into. I don't think it's something that is like useless. I think a lot of people think that college is like now useless and that you can be able to have a good career outside of it. It's doable, but you have to, I would argue that those people have to really, really know what they're doing. And they have to be smart with their money. They got to be smart with how they spend their time, kind of like that entrepreneur mindset, which is a very, very rare skill to have. And I think a lot of people take advantage of people like that, but we can get into that. But yeah, college to me is so worth it for sure. So some of the statistics that I wanted to bring up is more in line with like the debt portion than it is with like, you know, which degrees do best, which degrees do not. We are going to go over some of those, but I wanted to bring up some of these statistics because I think that people are starting to really think about this stuff right now when they probably didn't care about it in the past, which I think is, you know, going into college, you should really need to understand these things now. So some of the statistics that I have here, this is according to educationdata.org. It says here the outstanding federal loan balance is 1.6 trillion and accounts for 92% of all student loan debt.
Oh my gosh.
1.6 trillion.
Trillion with a T.
With a T. Insane. 43.2 million borrowers have federal student loan debt. That's almost half of people that just borrow money have student loans. The third one I have here is the average federal student loan debt balance is $37K, while the total average balance, including private loan debt, may be as high as $39K, almost $40K. So this says that the majority of people's debt is normally student loans, which I found interesting. The average public university student borrows $32,637 to attain a bachelor's degree, and that's not even counting graduate programs, you know, to get your master's, stuff like that, which are normally higher than that. So the fact that a lot of these stats show so many people in college debt, it just tells me that college is a very, very well accepted thing, like we were saying, in our society, and people kind of just like jump into it without really thinking about like some of the complications. So these numbers are insane, and you go to college to get the degree to get a good job. And what kind of like I think is like, you know, big college does is, you know, they promise you that, you know, you get this degree, you'll be able to get a job and you'll be able to pay this off. At like a surface level, kind of sounds all right. I think that a lot of people go into college and like, yeah, I'm going to get that job right out of college. I'm going to be able to pay this off over time.
Yeah, it's very normalized.
Yeah, it's very normalized. And for a while, even going back to like, you know, with the boomers and like Gen X, it was either college or the military, I feel. You know, that was what a lot of them kind of like promoted. And then, you know, some were like, yeah, you could do a trade, but nah, like, you know, you don't want that. You want to go into corporate America. You want to go into these things and be a valued member of society. And to do that, you got to be educated. Getting a college degree for a lot of people is seen as like a status symbol. Like, you know, it's like, oh, you graduate with a bachelor's in this. Oh man, you're awesome. You know, you're doing, you know, you have a master's. Oh, that's great. I'm not saying those things are not, you know, by the way, I'm not saying those things are not great accomplishments, but I feel that, the culture for a while was like, oh, well, you took two people and it's like, okay, well, you have an education and one doesn't. They could be making the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. And one is valued higher than the other. The way that I view college is it's more about preparing you for the workforce rather than getting you the job that you actually want. Because if you think about it, you're probably not going to be writing research papers and studying a ton when you go into your real job. A lot of those things you kind of like learn at your job, but a college degree basically to me says I'm teachable. I spent a lot of time learning how to study and how to be dedicated for the job that I'm going to be getting.
Right.
And like, you know, when you get into like the graduate program, I think that's when you kind of like focus in a lot more on the actual foundational stuff of your job in the future. It's just something that's like interesting, you know, kind of like you mentioned, the culture pretty much influences a lot of these things. But going into like the next part, I wanted to talk about things that I think that you should be mindful when you're considering college. We already mentioned one, you know, the cost. The cost is going to come at where you go to college. The cost is going to come, kind of like what degree you get. It's going to come whether or not you're getting financial aid or you're staying on campus and doing all of those things. I think a lot of people don't really think about those things. There's like, I just got to get through the 4 years, right? I just got to get through the 4 years, and whatever balance I have, that's just what I gotta worry about later. These loaners, these student loan providers, they're like, yeah, you don't got to pay for your loans until you're done. So you go through college and you're pretty much like, yeah, when I'm done, I'll worry about this. But right now, I'm just going to just be here and do what I got to do.
Can't really feel the weight of it.
Right. Exactly. You don't feel the weight of it until you're actually done, which a lot of people, especially when they go into like 4-year universities, one of the common things that people have is, oh yeah, college, it's time to party. I find it funny that a lot of people are like, oh, well, my slave days were during high school and my college days is when I'm going to have a good time. And then I might study and I might think about getting the piece of paper and paying off my loans later on, but I'm here to have a good time. I think that's something that is a mistake. I think that if you go to college with the mindset that like, I'm not trying to get this degree and pay as little as I can, you're going to end up owing a lot of money. And what comes with that mindset too, you might change your major a lot. You might lose your scholarships because you're out here just spending all your time partying and like having fun. I'm not saying you shouldn't have fun. I mean, if that's what you want to go to when you first get in, like, oh yeah, my freshman years, I'm just going to just be trying to like join, a frat or some sorority and just have a good time. And they're like, oh yeah, they're my gen eds. Who cares? I'll just BS my way through them. I really think that your mindset going into it needs to count the cost more than you just trying to, have a good time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think college is, in a sense, this big prereq to life, because all of a sudden you have a lot of responsibility on your plate. You have your class schedule, but you also have freedom. And with that responsibility, like we say all the time, you have power now.
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility. Are you going to use that power for good? Are you going to be at class on time? Are you going to be sitting in the front? Are you going to build good relationship with your professors? Start off with a high GPA, because as college gets harder, you'll have that strong foundation to kind of lean back on if you make a little bit lower grade. Are you preparing for your test? Do you have a game plan for your degree? What kind of internship do you want to get on? And this is kind of the foundation of that time. And a lot of Americans, I'd say it's probably, I don't want to give percentages on this, but I'd say a good portion, they come in, they're focused, they're ready, and they're driven, especially international people. I mean,
oh yeah,
they come in and they're ready to take advantage.
Oh, they're killing it.
Great. Of this economy, of the freedom and all these things that they don't get in other countries. But yeah, Americans are just more, when I was at the University of Memphis, I can't tell you how many times I walked in the library and there was so many people just literally watching Netflix on their laptops, or playing games. I remember like there was one section where people were just all like kind of gaming on their computers. Yeah. This is the time in life when you get to start taking a lot of responsibility and you get to build on that.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. When I first started, I was not very focused. I was just out of community college. But I quickly, after a year, I quickly got very focused and I really wanted to better myself and be the best that I could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, that got a little off topic, I guess. But yeah, this is the time when you want to start getting good systems and processes in place. And that starts with, where are you going to go to college? If you live in Memphis, Tennessee, why do you want to go to Michigan State, where it's going to cost, I'm just making that up, but let's just say it's $70,000 a year versus you could pay, $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
And honestly, I started out in community college. Now a lot of community colleges are free depending on your income.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But ultimately I went to the community college. I transferred to Memphis, completed my degree there, and eventually got into graduate school. And that's where I got most of my student loans. But yeah, it starts with having a good process and a plan. And I didn't even, as a kid, we don't really educate on finances in high school very well.
No.
We teach how to do all these basic classes, and we reward people for making good grades. But we don't really teach systems like how do you study, how do you begin to think about wealth early on, and hopefully that's something that'll change over time. But yeah, I mean, I think that's where it starts, is the debt. Because look at this. If you look over the past 2 decades, the cost of going to college versus wages of people, there's a huge divergence. College is way more expensive. And people all say all the time, why do you millennials complain so much about things? But it's the truth. I mean, there's a big divergence in how much it costs to go to college. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's like, it's not that it's unfair, but it's just different. It's
right. I feel like back in the day, you can probably go to college and like on the cheap. So you're taking a small amount of risk to get a degree that might let you do what you want. Whereas now, if you were to take the same risk, it's going to cost a lot more. So like, later on in this episode, I was going to go over some of the degrees that like pay the least. I feel like a lot of those degrees back in the day, you probably had a better chance of being able to find a career that pays well compared to now. But, you mentioned too that, college is basically preparing you for the real world, and that we need to be educated ahead of time. I think that's so true, because big education is like kind of like taking advantage of people's like, inability to think about these things before they go, or like whatever, because they're painting this picture that's like, oh yeah, like college is about status, it's about experience, it's about memories. But when you're done, you're left with all this debt. If you get a degree that's not paying, you're going to end up being like, what was I doing during those times? And then you end up growing up a lot later on in life. Not to mention the interest rates on loans is insane. It's a lot less glamorous. It might be glamorous in the moment, but when you're responsible for paying those loans and your degree is not getting you that job, it's a tough life, man.
Yeah, tomorrow always comes. I was going to ask if I have a nephew and niece. They'll be considering college choices pretty soon. What degrees do you recommend? I know, like we teach, follow your passion, do this, but when it comes to, the amount of money that you're going to be making, it matters.
Yeah.
The field that you're going to be in, how it works in the economy. When we do get in hard times, are you more likely to be unemployed? Is it going to be stable?
Yeah.
Are there certain degrees that you think are, I guess, just more stable when it comes to those things?
Yeah. Before I get into that, I just wanted to preface this conversation that I think that you can follow your passions. The passions don't always have to be tied to your job. I think that you should find a job that you're not going to absolutely hate.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you don't always need to like be 100%. I'm doing what I love at my job. Like that doesn't have to always be the case.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about your question, it's gonna vary. I think that you should start off with like, what do I like to do and what could I do every single day?
Mm-hmm.
And then you move on from there. If you're doing it based only off the money, then I think that it's going to be harder. Your mental health is something that's like huge. I think that back in the day, a lot more people like boomers, maybe even like Gen Xers, were like, find what's paying.
Mm-hmm.
Always find what's paying. You don't need to worry about what you like to do because you have responsibility. I think that now it's a lot different with all of the like mental health research that has been happening. People don't want to be stuck at a job that they hate.
Yeah.
You want to be able to do something that you can wake up and at least tolerate.
Tap dance.
At the very least tolerate, man.
Yeah. Go tap dancing to work every day.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to it doesn't have to be something that, you absolutely love, but it's something that you have to wake up and be like, going back to your question, or if I were to tell people like what degrees they should or should not get into, I wanted to start off by going over the worst paying degrees as of 2022. Right. So as of 2022, we're going to go over the majors that produced the lowest amount of income. It says here, this is a recent New York Federal Reserve analysis back in March of 2024. The median annual income for these degrees that I'm about to mention was to $38,000 a year.
Okay.
Liberal arts, performing arts, theology and religion, leisure and hospitality, general social sciences, history, miscellaneous biological science, and fine arts. Some other ones here is psychology, anthropology, elementary education, early childhood education. A common theme with like the majority of them, like there's some that are like not really tied to some of these, but a common one that was a lower paying degree were ones in like the arts. So, history, liberal arts, fine arts, like some of these that are tied to the arts are typically a lot less paying. The job market for these is a lot less than the higher paying jobs, the higher paying degrees, which we'll go into after this. But something that I think that a lot of people like to do is that, like, I have an interest in history. I have an interest in some kind of artsy like thing. There's a meme about, the underwater basket weaving degree, which is like, probably not even real. But these degrees that they pertain to like studying history or studying something like this, where you're not really producing anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Like those degrees normally pay a lot less because there's no product behind it. Now, an arts degree, like a fine art degree where you're like making something like that, that's not more towards producing something that is gonna provide somebody with something. It's more of like entertainment. I like to think of like these things along the lines of like entertainment / like a hobby. And like, I'm not, I say that with all the respect for those that like, haven't gotten these, but when times get hard, like what he was saying, those jobs are normally the ones that kind of fall off because, like, for example, if you wanted to work in like a museum, if you wanted to work in like, maybe, some like creative director like thing where it involves people coming in and like it's for more like leisure or just like along those lines. It's not like hard, I need this.
Right.
Those are the jobs that normally go. And I think that's why these jobs are normally the ones that pay a lot less.
Yeah. When times the economy get hard, those people are going to stop doing those pretty quickly. Probably.
Right. Like the fun hobby like things that people would normally do. Those jobs are the ones to like drop off. It mentioned psychology in there as well, which I find is interesting because you would think that with the kind of like the growth of studies and like mental health and a lot of those things.
Yeah, and I think with that, you really have to go to graduate school to take advantage of those positions. So I'm pretty sure that's why. I think you can only do so much with a bachelor's in psychology. I could be wrong. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But.
Well, most of the time, I think that people that want to get into these fields, they have to get a master's. And what they end up normally doing is they're teaching at like a university, or they're like a college professor. In very, very niche cases, you're running your own business that like require, so you can be like a consultant or something like that. But in the end, the cost, going back to the cost is very, very high, and the return is probably not as much. Like I would say that like a college professor is probably making like 60 to like 70,000 a year. It's more than this with a bachelor's, but you have to get a master's, which, you're adding maybe an extra like 10 to 15K on top, sometimes even more, maybe like 20K on top of your degree, just to get the master's and then be making that kind of money.
Right.
But you're also not guaranteed the job because of supply and demand.
Yeah, and when it comes to healthcare, with psychology specifically, if it doesn't really involve insurance, you probably aren't going to make a ton of money. Now, if you're a psychiatrist, yeah, that's a whole different story.
Right. That's more of like the health sector.
Right. You're talking medical school and all that. Yep.
Right. So I wanted to go into now the highest paying degrees. This was from the same study,
and we're still just doing bachelor degrees.
Yeah, we're still doing bachelors.
All right.
So starting from the top: computer science, finance, economics, healthcare, nursing, computer engineering, software engineering. A lot of these, biomedical engineering, marketing. A lot of these are more of like the practical, what people need, like building things, constructing things.
There's always going to be a strong demand for all the things you just mentioned.
Right. There's always going to be a strong demand of it. Doctors, nurses. So really, engineering, tech, healthcare. You mentioned teaching, and this is something that I just want to bring up. I think that teachers are severely underpaid in the States. I don't see how the education system has gotten away with paying teachers so little, especially like, the lower, kind of like grade school going into like high school. That's a very, very important time in these kids' lives where they're being taught a lot of these like fundamental things, because just like how like college prepares you for the workforce, elementary, middle school, high school, like these things are giving you like a very basic foundational knowledge on like everything that leads up into everything else. The fact that a lot of these teachers are not getting paid a lot, and a lot of that kind of goes into like different areas, like, some states pay more than like others.
Now they do get good benefits.
Yeah. They get,
and you're not getting paid. I mean, I know you get your holidays, but you're not actually working the whole year too. You're still getting a couple months off. You get Christmas break. But I think when it comes to teaching, it's more of a qualitative versus quantitative thing. There's high quality in what they're doing, but and it's, this is more on the government level, but the production is these students, their education, preparing them for college, preparing them, if it's elementary, the next step, preparing them for life. But when you compare that for the top paying degrees, you've got a lot of quantitative things in there. There's a lot of production. So when you compare those two things, and teachers get great benefits too.
See here, so the median salary for a teacher in Memphis, even going to like high school, is like $35,000.
Really?
Yeah, that's not a lot. You talked about like the quality. I think there's a lot of great quality teachers.
No, absolutely.
And they go into these schools. Some of them are double timing it as like parents, as like life coaches, instructors. So they play a very, very important role in our society.
No, I agree. You can't put a price on those things.
Right. So it's just interesting that teachers are not getting paid more for what they do.
Yeah, I think if you go into education, it makes sense to just go ahead and get your master's degree and eventually begin teaching, like even if it's just community college, bigger college.
Even people that just want to teach like kindergarten through like fifth grade, 6 to 8, like those I think are just arguably even more valuable sometimes. Like I think that those developmental times of a kid's life, if the goal is to get them prepared, what like those early stages, like when I was like a third grader, and I had a great third grade teacher, Miss Hill. You're probably not, you probably have no idea who I am, but all I'm saying is that like the time and like effort that my teacher put into me, not just from learning, but from like helping me regulate my emotions, helping me to to be disciplined in the work that like that's like that like subconscious foundational stuff that's instilled in us at like a very early age, that sets us up for like the high school to where we can be able to compound on those things. And for some reason, I feel that like here in the States, it's not as valued because they're like, oh, well, they're just babysitting the kids. You know, they're not really doing anything. If you don't have a good foundation early on, you get messed up during those times and you might end up not even doing anything with your life afterwards.
I'm thankful for great teachers that I had in my life too. My father was a teacher. My sister's a teacher. We're thankful for great teachers in the community and around this nation. So it's funny, we kind of went on a tangent about them, but just know this: we are thankful for you all and all that y'all do for this country.
Yes. Thank you so much. You're very, very important.
Absolutely.
So circling all this back to it's like college and kind of like wrapping up the college part of this, because I want to get into another part that kind of like links with this as well. If you're considering going to college, make sure that you understand the costs, you understand the price of it, you're understanding the return based off of your degree. I would follow a path with college that's not influenced by somebody else, that's not influenced by society. Now, obviously, society is more of the supply and demand, so that's something that you should consider. But I'm sorry, and this might be a little rambly, but I don't care if your dad went to X college and that's where he wants you to go. I don't care if your parents want you to go into a certain profession that like they had that you might not want to do. Those things do not matter. Do not fall for that trap. Do not fall for that lie. I'll also say too, the place you go, what matters is if you can go somewhere that you can be able to get the best return on your investment, to be able to find a job.
There it is.
Who cares about the college life that they have over there? Who cares about how it looks from the outside? I would even now, this one might be controversial, but don't stack on debt just to do fun, cool college stuff. Like, I understand that going Greek with like the frat and the sorority stuff is like, that might be enticing. And, in some ways it's a good networking tool, but most people don't really utilize it for the networking tool. They utilize it because they want to party and they want to find friends. You can find friends outside of those things for sure. Like, you don't need to fall into that, and you're saving yourself a lot of money without going into those. So
yeah, you can stay at home. You don't have to live.
Yeah, you can stay at home
if you're in the same city. If you're in the same city,
right,
there's no reason to pay all that extra money to go live on campus just
right,
for the experience.
Right. Now, if someone's paying you to go there, by all means.
Yeah.
By all means. Like, if you got a crazy scholarship to go to like freaking MIT, Harvard, Yale, all those, by all means. Because in the end, if they're not paying for your college, you're the one who has to pay for it down the line. They're not going to be worried about this stuff. They're trying to get you in, and these loan providers are going to be, sitting there with their hands like this, like, what kind of sucker can I get, dropping them. I mean, dude, I've seen so many stories like $100,000 student loans, $200,000 student loans. How are you going to pay that off?
I do have a thought though.
Yeah.
If you had an opportunity to go to an Ivy League like Harvard or Yale, would you still go even though you had to pay a lot of debt?
I think
that might be a good return on investment.
Well, sure. Oh, okay. I'll say this: like, if going to a specific college benefits you in the degree that you're getting, so like Harvard Law, obviously one of the most prestigious ones out there. You're very, very valuable doing that. But also too, it's like that's another cost you have to do. Are you paying for everything? Are you paying for everything out of pocket? Are you getting some scholarships? If you're paying for everything out of pocket, then it might not be as glamorous. Like, for me specifically, like, I'm in tech. MIT might look good, but you don't have to work at Silicon Valley. You don't have to work for a friggin' FANG company. Well, Mang, if Facebook and Meta. You don't have to work for those big companies to be in the field that you want. I can go find a job working at like, Baskin Robbins as a freaking software developer, making good money, right? I can still make good money. some companies offer the same role without you having to go into the fancy stuff. Like, do what you want to do, do it as cheaply as you can. Cause even in tech, certifications, places like freaking Amazon offer free resources for you to learn at like a foundational level to learn some of these highly valuable skills. Right. And like, tech is very, very well known for that. Like obviously some stuff like, healthcare, other things, like you probably got to get, a degree, but just weigh the costs as much as you can.
Yeah. The most important thing I heard was return on investment. Yeah. That's the key to all this. Value that return on investment and you're going to do fine.
It has to return something.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't like college should not be something that's like a vacation or like, a memorable experience. Cause like, it really depends, cause in the end it's all subjective, but just know it's going to be very, very expensive. That experience might cost you a lot of money one day. And I really hope that you understand the return on investment. So I wanted to end by just going into a little segment on like things outside of college that you might want to consider as well. So trades, one of the biggest things right now, something that I've been seeing a lot more recently. Trades have been on the rise, and honestly, trades have been around and have been well off for a very, very long time. I think the thing that people don't like about trades is a lot of it is like manual labor, dirty work, something very, very specialized that you probably don't go to like a specific, to like a normal college for. You have to get trained in like a specific trade school or whatever. So like, we already mentioned like, engineering fields and stuff like that.
Diesel mechanics.
Yeah. Diesel mechanics, even something like,
aircraft mechanics.
Yeah. That, those things, but some of the ones like welding, being a plumber, being a freaking carpenter, like, do y'all realize that right now the housing market, it's so gridlocked where houses are such a hot commodity right now, and they're so expensive that most people can't afford it. And that's a whole nother conversation, but they're so valuable. And what makes up a house?
Exactly.
It's plumbing, it's flooring, it's wood, it's architecture, which, that could be learned more in like a regular college.
It's roofing.
Yeah. Roofing. All these things, all these like trades are so important.
And they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. If anything, they should be building more houses to help us be able to afford to get into something.
Remodeling the bathrooms, like gosh.
Yeah, sheetrock, all that stuff, is super, super important. I think a lot of people don't like doing it because it's like, oh well, I got to get my hands dirty. Societally, I think a lot of these jobs are looked down upon. Look at the salaries of some of these people. Like, the average salary of even like an electrical engineer starting off is like 75, 80K.
Well, electrical engineers go to college though.
Well, but like a lot of that is from like trade like schools. I mean, you can go, but actual practical, like being like a technician, where you have to have electrical engineering understanding, but you're doing more of like, you're like setting up the grids, you're working on like the lines outside, you're doing all of like those things. Those jobs get paid a lot. Welders, easy 6 figures. Oh, yeah. Easy. It's not even funny. The thing is that a lot of these manual labor jobs that are more like hands-on, a lot of these are very, very sought out. They're needed jobs. They pay pretty well. And, who cares about the status?
I mean, you can turn them into your own business and entrepreneurship. Then you're really kicking butt on the people who went to college.
Right. See that's the thing, is that a lot of those people that do those kinds of jobs, they have the mindset of like, okay, well, what is needed? What is needed versus like, what do I want to do? If there's one thing to take from this, the practical degrees and the ones that are going to be pushing us as a society through like innovation, engineering, those jobs, healthcare too, those jobs are going to be paying a lot of money. Just consider all of those things. Like, you don't have to go to college to be able to make a good amount of money. There's a lot of resources out there outside of college, like, YouTube being one of them. You have a lot of these like platforms like Udemy where you can be able to learn skills, not only in like tech, but also too in like soft skills, understanding business, creating your own brand.
Young people, at the end of the day, find that return on investment.
Oh, yeah.
If it's going and doing a trade and turning that into entrepreneurship, go do it. If it's going to college, becoming an engineer or something, go do it. Going to graduate school, become an occupational therapist, go do it.
Yeah. well, I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do or pursue things that you want in college. I'm just saying, understand the risk. And because like, at some point, maybe in the future, maybe those jobs will be a lot more valuable than they are now. Go into college with that mindset of the return on investment.
Yes, that's what it is.
Like if you don't, then you're gonna end up in like massive amounts of debt. You might not even use your degree.
Yeah.
You might not even use it. But go to college with the thought that I'm getting this piece of paper to help me get a job, and not just for some experience or to like live out my family's expectations of me. Do it for yourself, do it for your future, do it to get to make the money, and just understand the risk, and you'll be fine.
I love it, man.
But yeah, that's gonna do us for here with this episode on colleges. There's a lot of stuff about colleges and trades that we not go into. If you want to leave in the comments, your thoughts on college, what do you think? What do you think about it? Is it worth it? Do you think that there's better things to do? Let us know in the comments below. That was our question of the day. Is college worth it? So if you have a question for us to be able to, to talk about on the show, let us know for the next one. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notification bells. For our channel. We greatly appreciate all the love and support that y'all have been giving us here. But yeah, is there anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, you've pretty much wrapped it up. We do have some portfolio updates coming, so stay tuned. There's some exciting stuff coming.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys, we love y'all, and until next time, let's continue to give it growth.